Hello and welcome to the FanDuel Punch-Out. I'm Big Italy 42. He's Spencer Limbach at Spencer_JL. And we got Clayton Kershaw Day here once again, facing off against Washington, as he always is. He's a nice big favorite. But your decision tonight, in your cash games at least, and I guess your tournaments as well, going to come down to if you're paying for Kershaw or DeGrom, or if you're going to go down a little bit to fit some bats. I don't mind DeGrom at all. $1,700 less than Kershaw. Obviously doesn't have the ceiling that Kershaw does necessarily. But, I mean, as far as strikeouts go, at least, he's been very consistent. 7, 7, 8, 8, and 10 in his last 5 starts. So I think both guys are fine options. Kershaw, of course, coming off that subpar outing against Pittsburgh. Now he gets a healthy Washington team, but still a pretty inconsistent offense. So price considered. You're considering price. If you had to pick one, who do you pick?
I might go with DeGrom. Just because you can do so much with that savings, and I think you need it for the hitters tonight because there's a lot of good hitters in nice positions with, relatively low opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Saying that there aren't many value plays, like at first base, for instance, you have, not to get ahead of myself, but Abreu, Rizzo, and Pujols sitting above 4K, and then you really don't have much in the value department. So it makes sense to pay up there. If you're paying up at positions like that, you're going to need a little bit of savings. So I think it makes more sense to go with DeGrom tonight, even though I really can't criticize anyone for Kershaw, of course. But, Washington's kind of heating up. It's all about the price for me here. I think DeGrom can at least come close to replicating Kershaw's performance. Just the outside chance of that and the savings has me leaning his way.
Yeah, and I hear that. I mean, if the $1,700 is substantial to you and you're with your hitters, then it makes sense. There are a couple other fine options on the mound if you're going to pay down a little bit. Danny Salazar might seem more like a GPP option, but he's been consistent recently. $8,700. We know he's got the big strikeout upside. Among the best on tonight's slate, actually number 2 behind Kershaw, 28.1%. He struggles a little bit with home runs, 1.15 per 9. Fortunately, he is facing the Yankees team. It's on the road, and the Yankees team, it's actually been pretty cold over the past couple games. So I think he's got a nice floor, and we know he has upside. I mean, Carrasco had a fine game against them yesterday, so it's an offense you don't go out of your way to target. But, they're not exactly clicking on all cylinders right now. So I don't mind him. I think you and I were talking before the show. Him versus Odorizzi, only $100 difference. It's a better matchup for Odorizzi, but his issue is he doesn't pitch deep into games. So strikeouts aside, you want a guy that can give you 7, 8 innings, and I feel like Salazar is much more likely to be that guy than Odorizzi is.
Yeah, and Odorizzi has a much lower strikeout rate, especially this season. And in a previous game against the Braves, he went like 6 innings with 2 strikeouts. So even though it's a good matchup, one that he's probably not going to get lit up in, I just don't know if he has the upside that you want. For that reason, I'm thinking Salazar is the better GPP play, obviously. But he's probably my favorite GPP play if you're paying down at the position. Just because, like you said, he does have the number 2 strikeout rate amongst pitchers going today. So I think he could give you 15-plus fantasy points, which is what you want. Load the bats around him.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're looking at cheap options, there's really nobody I feel comfortable with. Matt Garza's coming off a solid start, but I'm not a believer in him really in any regard. I think he's an okay GPP option at $6,500 just because the Cubs do strike out a ton against right-handed pitching, but certainly not a guy that I'll be playing very often. One guy that's interesting, and I hate to even bring him up, but it is a lefty-dominant Cleveland lineup. Sabathia is very good against lefties, but terrible against righties. He's got a 222 WOBA against lefties this year compared to a 387 WOBA versus righties. There aren't very many righties in this lineup. They added Chris Johnson. He hits lefties pretty well. You got Ryan Rayburn in there, of course, but and Yan Gomes. But outside of that, you really don't have anyone who hits lefties particularly well. You got a lot of left-handed bats in there. So I think at $7,300, he's an interesting tournament option.
Yeah, and one more thing CC has going for him tonight is that Cleveland is much more friendly to power hitters that are left-handed. They have that big wall in left field that would kind of reduce some of the home run probability for those right-handed hitters, and that's where Sabathia really struggles. So he has that working in his favor tonight. I still would probably rather go with Salazar on the opposite side of that matchup.
Yeah.
Might be a little difficult for Sabathia to get a win there. But, I mean, yeah, I don't mind that. I think he's going to have a definitely lower ownership percentage for 1,400 cheaper, so you can do some things with the hitters there as well.
Absolutely. Any other pitchers that you like, GPP, cash, anything like that?
Not really. I was going to mention R.A. Dickey, but for a GPP, obviously, because you don't know what he's going to do with that knuckleball. Even though it's against an Oakland team, and the last time he played Oakland, he went 8.1 innings, almost a complete game. 6 strikeouts, got a win, 16 fantasy points on FanDuel. So you got to kind of like that the A's really didn't hit his knuckleball the first time through. Granted, there's a park shift in Toronto, and I'm not in love with the price tag at 8K. I think that's a little inflated. If he was down towards the Sabathia range of 7.3, I might give him a stronger look, but he's just kind of in the middle. If I'm building a lot of tournament lineups, I'll throw him in a few, but I'm not going to, get crazy and rostering Dickey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. We never really know what you're going to get from him. But the other guys you got to consider here, I'm really not in love with Garrett Cole, especially due to his price at 10-4. St. Louis, a very capable offense, and it's not to say that he couldn't put up a solid performance, but hasn't shown a lot of upside recently. So I think if I'm playing one side of that, it's going to be Michael Wacha. I mean, he's been really consistent recently. 5 or less hits allowed, and looks like 5 of his last 6 starts. So not allowing a lot of base runners. Strikeout rate getting up there from his slow start to the season. So $9,100. I think he's the only other guy I'm really going to target tonight.
Yeah, I like it too.
All right, catcher options here. I'm going to be trying to pay down where I can for some of these cheaper options. Stephen Vogt, $2,300 in the Rogers Center. Still hasn't done much recently. Did have a homer a couple games ago, but you like the park shift. Hit a double last night. Near minimum salary for a guy facing Dickey, who obviously isn't throwing the ball hard. Those knuckleballs can certainly leave the park a lot faster when they get to the plate. And another cheap guy I like, assuming that he's in the lineup, and he should be, Miguel Montero at absolute minimum against Matt Garza. Garza's an okay pitcher, but does struggle a lot with left-handed bats. 367 WOBA allowed this season. So a lot of these Cubs lefties in play for me here.
Yeah, and speaking of another Cubs lefty, I think Kyle Schwarber is the best catcher on the board,
Yep.
but he is priced accordingly at $4,000. So I don't think you can squeeze him in. Like you said, this is probably a spot you want to get value. And of those guys, I like all the guys you mentioned in Vogt and Montero, but another one I'm going to throw into the mix is Dainer Navarro of Toronto. Assuming he's in the lineup, doesn't always play. But when he does, he usually bats 5th, and batting behind the likes of Encarnacion, Donaldson, Bautista, Tulowitzki, all those guys. Certainly a great RBI spot. And Brooks of Oakland hasn't really been setting the world on fire in his first few starts. So I don't mind that matchup. He's actually my preferred pick if he is in the lineup batting 5th. Otherwise, if he's not, you have a lot of different routes to go, like I said with Vogt and Montero. So a lot of options in the bargain bin for catchers tonight.
Yeah, definitely. If you're paying up for a pitcher, this seems like a great place to save salary. Yeah.
One more guy, John Jaso, 2.6K. I like him batting leadoff against Weisler, who has given up a 420 WOBA against lefties. Not a great ballpark, but, I mean, Jaso, great matchup, batting leadoff. I mean, 2.6K. If you can get him in over those other guys, I think that's a nice route to go. Otherwise, you could fall back on those other options as well.
Yep. One more guy that I should have mentioned, Yan Gomes, does crush left-handed pitching. Got a lot of upside there. 2,800 against Sabathia. First base options here. Looks like Albert Pujols is going to be in a great spot again. Gets John Danks, the lefty. We know Danks puts up those surprise good starts every once in a while, but still a guy who's very, very bad against right-handed batters. 375 WOBA allowed. Pujols got a big price jump from last night despite the bad performance from the Angels, but 4,000, he's a great play, I think. Anthony Rizzo at 4,200, another lefty against Garza. And then I'm hoping once again to be able to play Lucas Duda in lefty-lefty matchup. Mentioned how he has those significant splits at home and road, and actually better against lefties and righties. Didn't play yesterday with back stiffness, but if he's back in today, you assume he's healthy. Obviously, no DH in the National League, so against Jorge De La Rosa and his struggles with the long ball, I like him as a tournament play.
Yeah, and I like the pun you did there as well. If he's back in the lineup,
Yeah,
that's
unintentional, but I'll take it.
He just fell into that, but yeah, it was good nonetheless. So yeah, I'm with you. Albert Pujols is the preferred play here. I think he's head and shoulders above the rest. Jose Abreu, Anthony Rizzo, same price range, similar kind of thing going on, but I'd rather have Pujols instead. And then looking down, there's not a ton of value, which is surprising for first base.
Yep.
Usually we have so many options, we really don't know what to do with them. But CJ Cron is someone that's kind of catching my eye if you need the savings. He has that same matchup as Pujols, a lot less desirable of a lineup spot in the batting order there for Los Angeles, but righty with some power against John Danks in U.S. Cellular Field. I don't think that's a bad spot, and he's one of the better picks, in that bargain range for first base.
Yep, absolutely with you there. One other guy that's fairly cheap, if Edwin Encarnacion can't go, he may be in the lineup either way, but Justin Smoke at $2,800. Nice power upside for cheap there as well.
Smoke monster.
Yep, smoke monster, smoke bomb.
Yep. You calling it? Are you calling a smoke bomb? Oh, we have it. He's on the record.
Yeah, I'll go
Big Italy 42 is calling a smoke bomb if he's in the lineup.
If he's in the lineup, yeah. I'm not calling pinch hit dong. I'm not that ballsy with Justin Smoke, but tremendous first name, big bat. I mean, you can't go wrong here. Second base options. I'll just go ahead and let you give your favorite option so that I don't have to say it.
Why do you always do this to me? You always want me to say your Reds players so you don't look like a homer, but then again, I have to say all the Twins hitters, and I look like a homer. This doesn't seem, very fair.
All right, I won't make you say it. Brian Dozier. Now I get the credit. So if Brian Dozier has a great game, at Big Italy 42, called it. He's in a good spot against Nick Martinez, who, as we know, is terrible against lefties and righties and everyone. So Brian Dozier at 3,200, way too cheap for this matchup.
Yeah, he's been cold lately, but that just gives you some savings there on the salary. Yeah, that's a great call by you. I'm all in on that.
You can use him if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and tail that pick. I guess it's a pretty good one. I previously overlooked him, but not really. So yeah, but there's no one else really in the same range that you're enthusiastic about. Neil Walker maybe at 3K. But as we said when we're breaking down pitcher, Walker's been pretty decent lately. And Walker, not to be confused with Waka, has been hitting down in the order. He's been batting around 6th lately, so you're not too happy about that if you're looking to back him. Otherwise, digging down a little deeper at second base, Johnny Giavotella, another guy who's got kind of a lineup demotion. He's been hitting 7th lately, but righty against John Danks for cheap. Once again, that's not a bad strategy to go, even though Danks has been better lately. But one more cheapie I want to throw out there is kind of the default punt option at second base. I think you know who I'm going to say. Scooter Gennett. He's got Jason Hamill tonight, and Hamill really hasn't been that good against left-handed hitters. 332 WOBA. Nothing outstanding to target, but really nothing to shy away from if you have a guy you like at a certain salary. And, Gennett fits that mold for minimum salary at second base if you need that savings.
Yep. And if I have a little bit extra, a guy like in tournaments there, Wilmer Flores at 2,400. Jorge De La Rosa just has not been very good. Obviously, Flores not a guy with a ton of power. But as far as middle infielders go, significantly more than the other people in that price range. So I don't mind looking his way in some GPPs.
Yep.
Third base options. I don't know if you heard of Josh Donaldson. He is the most expensive player that's not a pitcher. Went 0 for 4 last night. Maybe that keeps his ownership level down, but I think his salary is what's going to keep his ownership low, especially on a night with some elite pitching. So $5,600 he's got. Similar upside to what he has in seemingly any matchup against subpar pitchers. So I imagine he'll be pretty low owned tonight. I like him in tournaments for that reason. You got to hate the price tag. He's $1,600 more than any other third baseman, but for that reason, I like him quite a bit. Other options, I'm not enamored with playing Alex Rodriguez or Nolan Arenado in tough matchups. I'd probably play A-Rod before I'd play Arenado. Salazar has had some issues with long ball, but neither guy really looks really standing out to me. I think as we're looking down, you and I were talking before the show, Chris Bryant seems like the guy that you want in your cash game, $3,300. He's just a solid hitter and finally starting to turn things around after that weak stretch he had for a couple weeks. So I think that's the guy that, if you can afford him, I think that's the cash game play for you.
Yeah, and Chris Bryant, still way too cheap considering his true talent level. I'm expecting that to go up. Within the next couple days, probably he'll be over 3.5K, maybe 3.8K. So take advantage of the discount while you can. Matt Garza, no one to shy away from. Even though he's worse against lefties, I don't know if that really applies here. Bryant's just a solid hitter, like we said. Otherwise, if you don't quite have the cap space for him, I think you can dip down $500 less. Miguel Sano, sitting at 2.8K. I think you can plug him in over Bryant and, feel pretty good about it. Like we said before, Nick Martinez, pretty bad against right-handed hitters. The Twins hit better at home. Target Field at Minnesota, everyone thinks that it's a pitcher-friendly park, but over the past 2 seasons, it's been top 10 in runs produced. So, more of a hitter-friendly environment than people think. Nick Martinez, the numbers on him, 375 WOBA against right-handed hitters. So actually 387. I was looking at the wrong line. So even worse than that. So Miguel Sano is one of my picks along with Chris Bryant there. I did originally like Danny Valencia just because he's on a tear, even though his price tag has went up at 3.2K. Now that he's against Dickey instead of Mark Burley, I don't know. I mean, you can still use him. That's more of a tournament play, I would say. But yeah, so that's why I have it going at third base tonight.
I got one sneaky GPP play for you here.
Don't even say Lonnie Chisholm.
I'm not actually,
Okay,
but it is a Cleveland
that...
Indians player. Chris Johnson, $2,600.
Okay.
The only thing he's ever really done in his career is hit lefties well. We know Sabathia's terrible against righties. 2,600. I mean, the guy's got 7 hits, including 2 doubles his last 2 games. 2,600 chased some power against one of the worst lefties against righties in the entire league right now. I think he's going to be a low-owned option if he gets to start today.
Yeah, and he's also the best third baseman that Cleveland has, so he's got that going for him.
It's because Lonnie Chisenhall moved to the outfield, and so we can move to shortstop here.
He got out of that one on a technicality.
Oh,
that
was beautiful timing. I love it. Troy Tulowitzki, though, still plays in the infield, but I think he's going to have a fairly low ownership, like maybe some other ones of these Toronto Blue Jays, because recency bias, it shouldn't come into play, but I think it will a little bit. $4,300 for Tulo, and he's really only had a couple decent games recently, but we know he's got big-time upside. Aaron Brooks is certainly not a guy that you're shying away from, and still one of those guys that, as I look at his name, all I can think of is Aaron Brooks, the point guard. But either way, Troy Tulowitzki is going to be the guy you want if you're paying up. You're certainly not playing Ian Desmond at his even higher price tag now that he's facing Clayton Kershaw, so go ahead and pass there. Another guy who's been hitting well but didn't or had another decent night last night is Drupal Cabrera, $3,400. He's only a GPP option though, because much like catcher, I think that shortstop is a place to save some money tonight if you're paying up in cash games. So I mean, this just kind of brings us to where we always come. Alcides Escobar, $2,300. You kind of know what you're getting. You're never really going to get more than about 3 or 4 points, but you're usually going to get 2 to 3 points.
Yeah, not to get too sidetracked here, but can we just take a second to kind of get the visual? If Aaron Brooks, the basketball player, was actually pitching tonight and he was on the mound wearing an A's uniform, could you imagine watching that, him going through this Toronto lineup, like Troy Tulowitzki, Jose Bautista, Edwin Encarnacion, like all those guys?
I'd pay to see that.
Dude, yeah, if that was on pay-per-view, like, I would probably buy it.
Probably be more exciting than Mayweather-Pacquiao, which I paid a lot more money for.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could turn on the TV right now and just click random buttons, and you might find something more entertaining than that. But, at third, or shortstop, I should say, it's either too low or cheap. And like you said, you want to get a nice quality pitcher tonight, so it's probably looking at more of the cheap side of things, and there sits Alcides Escobar in a righty-lefty matchup, leading off for this Kansas City team that should have another, 4.5 run total, which will rank I'm assuming, amongst one of the better of all the teams going tonight. So, I mean, yeah, he's pretty much the default cash game pick. He's going to be popular, not a really bad one. Sometimes you just have to take the popular pick and go against the grain in other spots. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do here. A few other guys that I like, kind of diversifying away from that. Jose Ramirez, if he's back towards the top of the lineup, he's been just smoking the ball, getting on base. 8 hits over the past 3 games. Granted, he had 8 at-bats last night in the extra innings game, but still pretty impressive the rate he's getting on base. He's drawing walks, doing everything. Stolen base potential, I don't know about against the left-hander CC Sabathia, but nice to know that he has that in his back pocket. He's a switch hitter, so Sabathia gets pulled early. He'll still have the platoon advantage in a bullpen situation. So, if you need someone in the middle, he's probably going to have a lower ownership percentage just because the price is jacked up a little bit.
Yeah.
But Jose Ramirez is a guy that I really do like tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's my favorite middle option as well against Sabathia. Moving on to the outfield here. You got your pricey options. Mike Trout got a little bit of a bump, but still far too cheap if you ask me. $5,000 against John Danks. Best hitter in the entire world against one of the worst against right-handed pitching. Yes, please. I'm going to try to get him in cash games if I can. I know you're thinking the same thing as well. I should say this. Bryce Harper did not start yesterday, and he has knee swelling, so we should have mentioned that with Kershaw. If he sits, I think Kershaw gets a significant bump because that lineup without Bryce Harper is even worse. But I'm not playing Bryce Harper anyway, even if he plays tonight. The only other guy I really would feel good about paying up for is Jose Bautista against Mr. Point Guard Aaron Brooks at 5,100. He just continues to just hit home runs. Somehow there haven't been many guys on base for him before, and probably because Josh Donaldson usually just brings himself home with a home run. But he certainly has monster upside tonight too.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Trout pick. I think Bautista is a nice GPP swerve away from that, but even though John Danks is pitching better, Mike Trout against John Danks is something I'm going to take 10 times out of 10, regardless of salary. So I'm probably going to do that route for a majority of my lineups tonight. Otherwise, looking a little bit cheaper, we have Lorenzo Cain at 3.8K. He's just crushing the ball lately, multiple hits in 3 of the last 4, including a 4-for-4 performance last night with a home run, a double. Guy just does everything, gets on base, hits for power, even in Kauffman Stadium. So you have to like that. He's against the lefty tonight. And as you mentioned before the show, Norris of Detroit, one of their new pitchers, he's giving up a ton of hard contacts. So, that just furthers Cain's cause even more, and along with Alcides Escobar in the other Royal bats. But 3.8K, he's definitely a target of mine tonight in the outfield. Otherwise, a little bit cheaper. You have Yoenis Cespedes going against Jorge De La Rosa, the lefty. You have to like that matchup as well. Cespedes has been, kind of rejuvenated himself when he first came to the Mets. Slumping a little bit. I wouldn't say slumping. He just had a couple of bad games, which is what you're going to get for him, which is why he might be more of a tournament pick, because he's going to go over 4, or he's going to go 3 for 4, hit maybe 2 home runs or 2 doubles or something. So more of the GPP type of pick there. I'd rather go with Cain for cash games, but keep him on your radar as well. Otherwise, dipping down even further, I like some of the Twins bats, and that really shouldn't come as much of a surprise, but you got Torrey Hunter, Aaron Hicks at 3K, and Eddie Rosario at 2.6 if you need a little bit of value. Nick Martinez, as we said, bad to both right-handers and left-handers. Twins a lot better at home. I think they're going to put up some decent numbers tonight. Hunter's probably more of a tournament pick, as he usually just hits a home run or doesn't do much. Hicks and Rosario really depends on batting order. If Hicks is down on the lineup, I'm less enthusiastic on him. Sometimes has been hitting 7th as of lately. They've just been shuffling things up. But in that case, Eddie Rosario for 2.6K as a value pick might make more sense in the 6th hole there, and he hits a lot better at home this season as well.
Yeah. One guy that I have here that's just way too cheap, Starling Marte, still just 3K.
Yeah.
You like Michael Wacha, but both he and Polanco both sitting there at 3K. Both guys just tearing the cover off the ball right now. So I like that as a little under-owned duo. Both guys can do it all. Steal bases, hit for, well, not so much power with Polanco, but he hits a ton of extra base hits, second, doubles and triples. Yasiel Puig at 2,700 against Jordan Zimmerman. It's a guy who's incredibly inconsistent, but when he has big games, they're huge, like last night. Triple and a homer, 5 RBIs. 2,700 gives you really big upside. Quite risky, though, I will say. And then as you go for cheap guys, there's not a lot. We were talking before the show. Shane Victorino, Kevin Kiermaier seem like the best men's salary punts. You assume that Victorino will lead off. Kiermaier probably be stuck down there in the 8-hole once again, which makes it more of a tournament option. But then one more cheap guy, Michael Kadire, $2,400, just returned from injury last night. Couple hits, scored a couple runs, even stole a base last night. So you know when you got your nearly 40-year-old outfielder stealing bases off injury. He's obviously completely healthy. And for $2,400 against De La Rosa, who has been just pretty terrible this season, I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, one more minimum salary guy I'm going to throw out is Alex Rios. I kind of like him grouped in there with Victorino and Kiermaier. Obviously, Victorino probably going to have the best lineup position out of those guys, so you don't mind that, especially if you're going with Trout and Pujols. Kind of gives you a nice little stack to feed into itself, which is, I don't know, it's kind of something, it's an added perk, I would say. If you love your lineup and you're just looking for a minimum salary guy to kind of fill it out, I think Victorino's probably the preferred pick out of those guys, but he's not someone I'm clicking in for minimum salary, then, building my lineups around. Not necessarily a must play in that regard, contrary to what some people might think, but yeah, so that's basically what I'm looking at for the punt plays in outfield.
Yeah, he's certainly a filler, not a building block for me either.
Yeah.
All right, and that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content, our optimizer, cheat sheets at dailyfantasycafe.com.